Hello there, Indiecade community. Here I am in Tortoro's house. May is over there, asleep on Tortoro's tummy. I've got my Indiecade glass of water, and let's get started. It is my really great pleasure to welcome you all to this year's Indiecade Climate Jam. I'm sure you're going to have a great time taking part in the jam. I'm sure you're going to learn lots about making games just by going ahead and making one. And I'm really excited for the positive impact that I think your games are going to have. My name is Richard Lemarchand, and I'm a game designer. I worked in the mainstream of the game industry for over 20 years on titles like Gex, Soul Reaver, and the game series that my friends and I are probably best known for, the Uncharted series. Now I'm a full-time professor in the USC Games program at the University of Southern California, teaching our talented students about game design, game storytelling, production, and more. And as an old friend of Indiecade, it's my great honor to welcome you to this climate jam. And in the next few minutes, to give you a little advice that I hope will be useful to you over the course of the next few weeks. So in the USC Games program, we use a 4-phase production process for making games, and you can see it here. It's based on the method used in a lot of places in the game industry, especially on the method that we devised at Naughty Dog for making the Uncharted games. In 2021, I published a book outlining the method, and today I want to tell you just a little bit about it. I particularly want to tell you about it because you're going to be using 4 separate sprints in the course of this year's Indiecade Climate Jam. You're going to start with an ideation phase, and in this phase, you're going to do lots of brainstorming, figure out what you're going to make. Then you're going to shift into a prototyping phase where you're going to make an initial prototype for your game. It could be buggy, messy, it could be all sorts of placeholder, but by the end of this sprint, you're going to have a playable experience. After that, you're going to move into production. This is where you're going to build out your game based on what you've discovered in the previous 2 phases. And then finally, you're going to do release and marketing. You're going to fix the bugs, do your final bits of polish, and then submit this to the jam for the final release. Now, I was really happy to see that the Climate Jam was going to work like this because I just think it's a really great way to make games in this 4-phase model. In my book, I start by talking about the ideation phase, actually, the time when we, are just thinking up loads of stuff. And I'm going to get into the kinds of things we do in ideation in the rest of my talk. At the end of that phase, we want some project goals. We want to lock in some decisions about what we're going to make. And then we keep coming up with ideas, right? I sometimes call this the decideation phase of the project because we're thinking up more and more stuff, but we're also at the same time deciding what we are going to do through a process of building, playtesting, and iteration. And again, I'll tell you more about this in a little while. If you ever want to read my book, you'll learn more about the vertical slice, but that's like the good demo that you're going to make at the end of your prototyping period. I talk about a thing called the game design macro, which is kind of like an improved game design document. Tell you more about that another time. And, you can schedule a project in lots of different ways, but I really like to use burn down charts. And then you head into the 3rd phase, just like you're going to head into production. And actually in production, we keep thinking up stuff, right? We keep coming up with more ideas for how our game is going to work. And we do that all the way through full production, still keeping on our process of building, playtesting, and iterating. And at some point, in a professional project, we'll start some serious testing. That marks the beginning of the alpha phase. It's up to you to decide how you tackle this. Usually at the alpha milestone, we're both feature complete, but also in USC Games, we're sequence complete. That means that we try and finalize the game a little bit earlier than that beta milestone, which I'm sure you know about. That's when we have a rough first ready finished version of the thing that we are making. In some way, at the beta milestone, we're done. But of course, we are not quite done because there's still quite a bit of work left to do, even though you're going to have a really good feeling once you get to that, once you get to the end of that production phase, and you are then Oh, you might want to do some extra special bits of playtesting then. I talk in my book about Kleenex playtests. Try your game on people who've never tried it before. You'll learn a lot. And then in that final phase that the Indicate Climate Jam is calling release and marketing, I call that post-production. That's when you get to do lots of wonderful fine tuning of the thing that you've made, adding all those last little bits of polish, balancing and bug fixing until finally at the very end of the process, we are done and done. If you've never done a game jam before, you're going to know, experience for the first time, what a lovely feeling it is to reach the end of a successfully completed project. And I think that having these 4 sprints, these 4 kind of project phases is going to really help you to make a finished game. If you've never made one before, taking part in a game jam is a really great way to finally finish one of those game projects that you've been tinkering around with for a long time. So today I wanted to give you just a few tips for that first phase, the ideation phase. And in the way I like to think about it, the ideation phase has these 3 main activities. The first of them I call blue sky thinking. The second one is research. And then the third one is prototyping. Let's talk about these a little bit more. There are lots of different things we can do under the banner of blue sky thinking. And of course, blue sky thinking gets its name from the fact that we are trying to, like, as if we were gazing off into the wide blue yonder, right? Where it's a time when anything is possible. We could come up with anything. There are lots of different activities that we can plan for ourselves to make that easier. One of them is brainstorming. I'm sure you've heard of brainstorming, just the process of coming up with raw ideas. I'm going to give you some tips for brainstorming in a minute. You might try a kind of advanced brainstorming called mind mapping. This is where we write a word in the middle of a whiteboard or a piece of paper and then write more words around it, linked with lines, words that are connected to that first word. And then for each of those new words, we can do the same thing. We can come up with a load of new words connected to each of those words around the outside. And very soon we get an expanding network of ideas. And if we see a branch that has a lot of ideas on it, that might mean that that's a really good branch to pursue. Have you ever heard of automatism? This is when, if we're having a hard time coming up with ideas, we set a clock, a timer, a stopwatch, an alarm clock, and then we just sit down and we write or draw or speak until the time is up. A lot of what comes out of us will be silly, of course, or off topic, maybe even nonsensical. But using automatism can be a really great way to tap into your subconscious mind. The surrealist artists love this technique. Another technique beloved of surrealists is the cut-up technique. This is where we literally cut something up. We might cut up a piece of text that we've drawn. We might cut up a picture that we've drawn and rearrange it into new configurations, again, in the service of coming up with something new. If you've got some ideas that you like, but you don't know how that you're connected, write them on index cards or post-it notes and stick them up on the wall or lay them out on the table, shuffle them, try and find new orders and combinations. Do you do any journaling? Maybe you've been writing about your feelings about the climate crisis. Well, going back into our journals, that can be a really great source of ideas. Have you ever been to Wikipedia Random? This is a special Wikipedia page that serves you up a random Wikipedia page. I love randomness as part of my creative process. It can be a really great way to discover something that you never had any idea about. Or if you're into stuff like tarot cards or the I Ching or other kinds of divination techniques, the symbols that we encounter using those, they can give us really great ideas. No matter how you come up with your ideas in blue sky thinking, don't forget to write everything down in your notebook. So maybe you've tried brainstorming, it hasn't gone so well. Here are a few rules that I like. You can find other versions on the internet that can be really helpful when we're brainstorming. Firstly, set a time limit. I think short brainstorms are better because our minds are fresher and often the first few ideas that come into our head are really, really good. If you're brainstorming in a group, appoint a facilitator. This is the person who's going to make sure that everyone gets their voices heard, that only one person speaks at a time, and who's also going to write everything down, either on a whiteboard or in a notebook. When you're brainstorming, always focus on quantity over quality. And what you're trying to do is welcome unusual ideas. You want the ideas to be really as weird and wild and wonderful as they can be. And to get to the most interesting ideas, try using the yes and technique. This comes to us from improv theater, of course, where actors build on their ideas, never by saying no but, or blocking or responding negatively, but always embracing ideas, running with them. It's just in our imaginations. It doesn't cost us anything to do this. You never know when the next really brilliant idea is lurking around the corner, just ready to be yes-anded into reality. And in the service of these previous three things, especially our focus on quantity over quality, don't discuss or analyze the ideas during the brainstorm. You can discuss and analyze them after the brainstorm all you like, but not during the brainstorm. If we get too analytical during the brainstorm, we can really shut down the free creative flow of ideas. Don't forget, only one person speaks at a time. Don't talk over each other. Be good collaborators in a group brainstorm. And again, write everything down. When you've had a brainstorm, I think that's the time to do a little bit of research. And there are lots of different ways, right, that we can research the ideas that we've discovered that we're interested in. The internet is an incredible resource. I really like image research, creating image boards, where we can get a lot of ideas down very visually in a way that communicates really well. Don't neglect the physical library. There's nothing like wandering through the stacks in the history or the art department of your local library, right, to make those serendipitous discoveries. If you decide to make a game set in a place that you could visit, then visit it in a field trip. The example I always use with my students is, if you're going to make a game about an ice cream shop, go and visit an ice cream shop. You might think you know how an ice cream shop works, but in fact, if you go to that place and take lots of notes and take lots of pictures, you'll make all kinds of wonderful discoveries that could really inform and help your design. I think it's really good to interview people. And in fact, there's a kind of advanced technique for discovering people's specialist knowledge called shadowing, where, we might accompany someone through their working day. And of course, you want to take loads and loads of research notes when you're doing your research. Again, write everything down in your notebook. Be a little careful when you're doing research. It's really easy to vanish down an internet click hole and to waste too much of our time on research. So give your research fixed and limited amount of time using a technique called time boxing. And when you're done, move on to the next activity. Chances are you'll have discovered something really cool. Now, I've mentioned notebooks a couple of times. I really love paper notebooks. They're really great. You can doodle in the margins. Of course, you can take notes digitally. And here are three different tools that you might be interested to use: Coggle, Stormboard, and Miro. All of these are really good collaborative tools for organizing information, both textual and image information, in a big kind of whiteboardy way. So maybe check these out. Now, I think that as well as blue sky thinking and research, the lifeblood of ideation is not just thinking and researching, but it is making things. So even though the second sprint is going to be the prototyping sprint, I recommend that you make a few prototypes in that very, very first sprint, in the ideation sprint. Don't delay in building something to play with. Now, when I say building, I don't necessarily mean coding here. Some of my favorite kinds of prototypes, some of my favorite games started life as prototypes, which were made of card and paper, of scissors and pens and glue, right? You can make very simple board game and card game prototypes to help you to discover the seeds of the ideas that are going to form the basis of your digital game. Now, of course, game mechanics are the rules and processes in a game that make up its functionality and its interactivity. And they govern what the player can do and how the game starts, unfolds, and eventually ends. So how do we figure out what game mechanics we should have in our game? We figure it out by prototyping. So you can get at one of those game verbs using a very simple paper game, or you could even explore those verbs by using action figures, right? Or even by standing up out of your chair and acting something out. And One thing I wanted to say about prototyping is that when you're prototyping, don't build a game yet, just build a little toy. I think sometimes people make a mistake when they start prototyping by trying to build a whole complete mini game. But I know from my experience as a game designer that actually the correct path is to take one step at a time. And for me, when I'm digital prototyping, that often means starting just by building a toy. A toy is an object that elicits play. So anything that embodies a playful verb. It might be the bounce of a ball. It might be the way that a ball rolls down a hill. It might be even something like smelling a flower. These kinds of verbs we can explore very thoroughly with just very simple toy-like playful interactions. So bear that in mind. And one more tip I have for you for prototyping is don't forget to add sound and music right from the very start. You may have seen this amusing internet meme. I'm a big, big believer that this is true. Music and sound, they make interactive digital projects sing. They bring them to life. They make them seem rich and full of emotion, and they reinforce the experience really, really nicely. So don't neglect sound and music. And if you're interested in sound design and you want to know more, I want to recommend this wonderful film all about sound design for movies, but it's equally applicable to games, which is directed by my friend and colleague in the USC School of Cinematic Arts, Midge Costin. It's available on YouTube at the bit.ly link that you can see right there. When you're prototyping, playtest. Playtest, 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 and don't ever stop. You've got to keep trying out what you're making on new people as frequently as you can. When I'm implementing a game, when I'm doing game design, I try not to do more than 1 or 2 hours of work without putting it into the hands of someone who hasn't seen that bit of work before. So yeah, try stuff out on your friends, your roommates, your family members. You will make a ton of wonderful discoveries. What you're trying to do is fail early, fail fast, and fail often. You've probably heard this aspect of the rapid prototyping credo before. You are trying to make your way through to the discoveries about what doesn't work and what does work as quickly as you possibly can. So keep playtesting. If you want to hear more about these ideas and many more besides, please check out my book. I want to say in the course of the Climate Jam, please take good care of your physical and mental well-being and of those of your teammates. Take lots of breaks, stand up and stretch as often as you can, drink enough water, get enough sleep, eat healthy, and get regular social time with your friends and family. So I want to applaud you for taking part in the Indiecade Climate Jam. I think that whenever we make a game, or indeed any piece of art, we're enriching the world and we're enriching ourselves. Making stuff is wonderful to do. But when we make a piece of art about a social issue that we really care about, well, that's often a time when something really special happens. I'm guessing that you share my concern for the fate of our planet and the life and people on it. Because of the way that the systems of industry and government that we have built, which have helped us in so many ways, they seem to have spiraled out of control and are now in danger of doing great harm to the delicate systems of the ecological environment, which, of course, support us as we travel through space on this beautiful spaceship we call the Earth. And to make things worse, there is so much misinformation around about the causes of the problems that we face. Some of it's been created because of the powerful interests of industry, right? But much of it is just because people don't have the right facts at hand. Games are systems. And so with this year's Indiecade Climate Jam, you have an opportunity to help combat that misinformation in a way that fits the problem, explaining the challenges and showing the opportunities that we have to make things better. Just think, if you helped one single person to expand and improve their thinking about combating climate change, well, you'll have made a positive impact on the world. A big part of the goal of this year's Indicate Climate Jam is to help you get one of your games out into the wild, making something that has a lot of reach, which is to say something that people can easily find and pick up and play. So as well as the engines that you usually use to make games, Indicate wants you to suggest that maybe you switch things up a bit this year and use platforms that have a really long reach, maybe platforms like Roblox. You could think about using HTML5 or an engine that lets you create a build of your game that can be played in a web browser. Or maybe you'll even make a game that can be played and distributed on social media. Whatever you decide to make, I hope that you will have an amazing time in the next few weeks. Good luck, have fun, and we all can't wait to see what you make. Cheerio.